Travis Wayne Goodsell. Let's see if the compromised Mormon working for YouTube will allow me to get this video uploaded for you. Do the Sunday school lesson for this week, this Sunday, on the Exodus. I've got to deal with laundry at the same time. So, the first thing we need to understand, to repeat in a different presentation for you, is that the Book of Mormon tells us, 1 Nephi chapter 1, verse 2, that we are supposed to be thinking in terms of the learning of the Jews for all things religion, especially who our Christ is supposed to be. And for the Jews, Moses, as written in the Torah, which begins with the Exodus, as Genesis becomes the preparatory book narrative. But as I've gone over with you, Genesis are all different stories derived from the Egyptian documents combined into a single narrative. And so it's not literal history. And for those post-Constantine, Emperor Constantine of 325 CE, the dates are way off. They're, mankind was long before 4000 BCE. And as I've gone over with you, the reason for why they are not literal history is that they were written during the Roman period time. During the Roman period time, the Romans were at war with the Middle East and doing a genocidal extermination. And so people were writing apocalyptic literature using the wars that they were involved in or from the Egyptian documents, depending on the story that they're basing it by. So the Gospels are apocalyptic literature. And there are a couple of blatant literary clues, linguistic keys in identifying the Gospels as apocalyptic literature. And I've been going over with you lately Joseph Smith's 19 July 1840 sermon that Brigham Young refused to put in the Doctrine and Covenants because Joseph Smith accuses Brigham and his 12 of all being Judas, except for his brother William. Although William did have a beef with Joseph at one point in time, I saw going through the Joseph Smith papers, but it was resolved. They're brothers, after all. Like Simon and Simon, Peter and Peter investigations. Yeah, I've heard the Mormonisms in there. The Mormon Tabernacle Choir, and other such stuff. And so, in Mark, where Joseph Smith uses his analogy of Judas for Brigham and his 12, he's Mark is the author who names it Mark, which Mark is Mars, the Roman god of war. And so you can see the apocalyptic nature by the name that was used for this document. And so don't be fooled by scholars who say, oh, this is the oldest known document that we've found, and Matthew took their stories from Mark, and no, wrong theory. It's already been disproven, it needs to be dismissed, and people stop using it. That's one of the problems I've learned with my education in identifying false theories, is that the fields that utilize the false theories refuse to give them up and look for a new theory that actually works and is sound, and are even trashing sound theories and replacing them with junk theories. Nonetheless, in Mark, it's about Jesus and Judas Iscariot and the Last Supper, and Judas exposes that one of them that eateth with me shall betray me, and says, this is one of the 12 that dippeth with me in the dish. And of course Da Vinci forgot to put them in. Where's the Holy Grail? But that's the whole point. Is because the linguistic tell that is revealed here is that the author changes his linguistic pattern. Let's see if you can catch it as I read the 3 verses. The one in the middle is the tell. And he answered and said unto them, it is one of the 12 that dippeth with me in the dish. The Son of Man indeed goeth, as it is written of him. But woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. Good were it for that man if he had never been born. And they did eat. Jesus took bread and blessed it and brake it and gave to them and said, take, eat, this is my body. Did you catch it? Pronouns are a good tell, but the changing of the words. Instead of using Jesus, he then switches and talks about the Son of Man. And there's prophecy about the Son of Man, as it is written of him. That comes from Deuteronomy chapter 18. The man like Moses. And that's why this is so important, is because the Exodus is apocalyptic literature about the man like Moses and the latter days. Matthew does it also. He does it in the actual apocalyptic literature chapter of 24. About the signs of the second coming. Yeah, he keeps saying, Son of Man, 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 after it starts with, Jesus is talking with his disciples, and they ask him, when will you come back? Well, he comes back at the end of the story of Matthew. He came back a second time after he died. And so, yeah, Matthew 24 is the tell, as well as Matthew 25 with the parables, that the book of Matthew, likewise, is apocalyptic literature, just like the book of Revelation. So it's not about literal dragons, beasts, flying horses, frogs, and Jesus. You can't mix real with metaphors. And so when you read Joseph Smith's Doctrine and Covenants, section 45, well, he tells us, I'm doing exactly as the Bible authors did for prophesying. And he's talking to Mormons. Hearken, O ye people of my church. I'm going to give you a parable, just like them of old, about the latter days. And so it's not Jerusalem, it's not Jesus, it's not the Jerusalem temple, etc. He gave us the code of how to decode section 45. And then the parable in section 101, starting in verse 43. Joseph Smith refers to that and explains it in greater detail in 19 July 1840, which Brigham Young did not want to have published. So that needs to be understood from the beginning. Son of Man. And the only Old Testament document that uses Son of Man is the one mighty and strong himself, from section 85 of the Doctrine and Covenants, which is the translation. Ezekiel, the God of strength, one mighty and strong. Constantly throughout Ezekiel, he's being called Son of Man, Son of Man, Son of Man. And so elsewhere in Scripture, you see Son of Man in the context of a mortal person. That is the learning of the Jews regarding the Christ. The bloodline, the seed of Messiah. From selections from the book of Moses, chapter 7, verse 53. So, Joseph Smith made it very clear that the great and abominable church would imitate his church, but change the name to have Constantine's false idol god, with the name of that false idol god. As Mormons, we all know this. We know our actual God's name, Amen. Adamandi, Amen. And yet somehow the church prophets have been able to deceive us into thinking his name is actually Jesus. But they claim they decoded the whole Doctrine and Covenants for us in the 1981 edition of the Triple. So if they did, why didn't they decode Amen? It's in several places. They missed it. Also section 117, it's there too. They missed it. Or they just lied to us, which is the actual truth. They don't want us to know the decoding of certain words and places, such as section 1 verse 16, Babylon. Oh, is it the world? Is it the United States? Or is it the great and abominable church? Give you a hint. John in Revelation says it's the great and abominable church, with the false prophet at the head of the great and abominable church. It's referred to as a she, thus the bride of Lucifer. And thus, the Ephesians comparison, as Jesus is the bridegroom of the church, which is the bride, so likewise is Lucifer the bridegroom of the church of the devil. Alright, so, Exodus, here we go. I'm dreaming of a white summer, just like the ones I used to know. And so, this is a separate book. It's the Jews during the Masoretic period of 800 to 1000 CE, who assembled the various books together into a narrative, and thus chose to leave certain books out. There's an Old Testament apocryphal type book that's different from the Apocrypha, in which Cain has a wife mentioned, and so there's other explanations filling in the gaps of the major texts that were approved, and those were left out. Book of Jasher, for example, contains extra information about Moses as a baby in the court of Pharaoh. And those are all, again, those are prophecies using story parables as apocalyptic literature. And so all of these heroes need to be part of your checklist, generally speaking, not specifically speaking, so that you can know who the the one mighty and strong, the man like Moses, the true prophet, seer, revelator, and translator is supposed to be, and thus identify the great and abominable church using your Book of Mormon, as well as the false Christ, false prophet, seer, revelator of that great and abominable church. And it should be obvious if you hadn't figured it out by now, and if you've not watched my other videos even. They're the ones who have gotten upset that I am a translator and want me dead. That's what crime bosses do. And so, at the beginning, you have the genealogy listing as a reminder. And they don't have them divided up by their mothers. And there's reasons for that, as I explained last time, that these are separate stories. There's different purposes behind the story, and so certain information is left out because it's not germane to the story. And so these are the names of the children of Israel which came into Egypt. Every man and his household came with Jacob. And so in the context, knowing that this is apocalyptic literature, you are looking for people who are in one land. Israel, or Canaan, was part of Egypt. So they didn't go down into Egypt. They were already in Egypt. It wasn't until the Assyrians, the Neo-Assyrians, when they came in and conquered northern Israel and had the northern tribes give tribute to Assyria. And that's when Egypt was losing its grip on the control of the land. Because Canaan is the grandson of Noah through Chem, which is the masculine form of Kemet, which is Egyptus, which is Egypt. Kemet, the dark land. And so it's not surprising the understanding that has crept into Christianity then turned racist to claim that African blacks are cursed because the Bible story has the black land leader, son of Noah, in control of Egypt. And they don't understand that Shem, the name, is also Egyptian, as Amen, the sun god at noonday. But the Bible authors, they lose knowledge of things and tend to get racist when you lose the light and truth Father promised to send you. And you really listened. And so we got Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, and they don't tell us and remind us that Reuben, Simeon, and Levi lost their birthright blessing status, which then passed it on to Judah, and Judah also lost it by the selling of his brother into Egypt. Nonetheless, and also lost it with the incident with Tamar, and yet he's getting away with it. And so, yeah, he becomes the alternate birthright blessing son for King David. But he technically lost the birthright and blessing. So all of Leah's children lost it. And thus Joseph, being of the favored daughter of Laban, Rachel, Yet nonetheless, the second to be married to Jacob becomes the birthright blessing son. And thus, the authors instead decided to tell us a story of the justification for Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah losing their birthright blessing, but Judah getting away with it so that King David can be born through him. And so Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, even Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher, none of those are legitimate heirs to the throne because they were through the slaves of the main wives. And so it's Benjamin, he was with through Rachel. I don't know why they list him after Issachar and Zebulun. But again, different author, not grouping them according to the mothers, just listing them out. So all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls. Now remember, this is written during the Dead Sea Scrolls confirm that the Masoretic text matches the Dead Sea Scrolls, which are so far the oldest document of the Old Testament. But there was a period in 600 CE where the rise of the alphabet Ben Sira, which included the story of Adam's first wife, Lilith, to explain what's going on in chapter 1 versus chapter 2. And again, I've already done the videos explaining that comes from the Egyptian documents about the creation glyph, so that I understand exactly what he was doing. He's doing exactly what other Bible authors do. But from that came what's called Jewish mysticism, and mysticism is not to be considered as witchcraft or satanic. It's supposed to be understood as esoteric, in the sense that mystery comes from mysterion in the Greek, which is an initiate who is being educated in the initiatories. As Mormons, we understand what that means. Temple. We are washed to become high priests and high priestesses, which in Hebrew is Zadok's, and then go into the next booth to be anointed kings and queens, Melchizedek's in Hebrew, or Melech's in Hebrew, and yes, Melchizedek's. We become Melchizedek. But what was the original name that, to avoid the too frequent repetition, became Melchizedek? Amen. And so in Paleo-Hebrew, Amen, as given to us by Isaiah, Emmanuel, is the universal symbol of the sun, then the M for high priest, from the Egyptian characters, transferred into linear script in Paleo-Hebrew, and then the N is from the king character in Egyptian in linear script in Paleo-Hebrew. And so Melchizedek, composed in the simple Paleo-Hebrew word Amen, given to us by Isaiah from the Egyptians, the sun god at noonday. That is our Christ, and the man like Moses, that's his name. And I did that video on my homepage on TWG. You'll see the playlist about the man like Moses. And you can watch them in order, and or you can just skip to the one about the name. That seems to be the popular one. Alright, so with Jewish mysticism, they had a thing where each Hebrew letter is connected to a number. And so when you combine words together, combine letters into words, they have an added numeric value, which then has esoteric mystery meaning to it. And so when you see numbers, especially when they're generalized, especially when you see 7, you know there's a Babylonian influence in there when you see 7, or day of rest, no labor on the 7th day. Now that was a Babylonian influence, which is a linguistic tell that you're witnessing an anachronism on the text. It did not come from the Hebrews prior to the Babylonian captivity, because the Babylonians created the 7th day calendar, as the 7th day was considered a superstitious day, as 7 is a superstitious number, and thus they ordered a national day of no work, because it's the cursed day. And the Jews, having been assimilated during the Babylonian captivity, assimilated all things Babylonian, despite the apocalyptic literature of the book of Daniel, which was trying to convince the Jews to not only give up their Babylonian assimilation, but also avoid the Greek assimilation and the Roman assimilation. And so there's anachronistic linguistic tells for when the text is written. And thus I tell you, the Bible, both Old and New Testaments, were written during the Roman period because of the tells. And so there you see 70, which is a Babylonian number, as it's considered Egypt is now going to be the bad guys of the story. Even though it's their homeland in Genesis, they're now being considered having come from Babylon all the way into Egypt, into Israel, and then now back into Egypt during Joseph's time. No, Babylon did not exist prior to Babylon existing. It's an anachronism. It's a blatant one, and yet all scholarship and Christians and even Jews fall for it. Alright, so the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly because they're trees. We can't talk about that 4-letter word S-E-X. 4 letters S-E-X. F-O-X. I've lost my younger women audience as well as the younger men audience. It's only people my age and above who are watching my channel. And the most attentive are the women in the cougar category above me. And yet the majority of you remain silent. You just watch. And so, yeah, you see the setting here is that they're in Egypt. He's trying to give an excuse to how they got into Egypt. And so, then says that, you know, they had lots of children. They greatly multiplied. And so there's a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. Now this is a tell again, because they don't name the king. And I have to take a break to change the laundry. So unlike other stories, even the Gospels, you have actual names of people and leaders and such given to us. But here, in Exodus, we're not given the names of the pharaohs. And it's a very interesting thing because, technically speaking, they are using the historical context when the David-Moses dynasty was ruling Egypt. But don't mix literal history with the Bible narrative, because you will get screwed up, as you'll be tempted to deny science to push your belief system over the truth. This is apocalyptic literature, and so it's very interesting that we're seeing King David that's involved here. But he knew not Joseph. This is what the author wants us to know about, is that somebody new is on the throne and has no clue who Joseph was. And he said unto his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier, one mighty and strong, Ezekiel. Gabriel is the other version. It's the strong man, as in physically strong, whereas Ezekiel is the god of strength. And they're similar, but because of the spelling with the different characters, they have a different nuanced meaning. But you see Israel, children of Israel, but loins of Jacob. So you can see what he's doing here. Household came with Jacob, children of Israel, loins of Jacob. And so they're doing a name game with us here. Jacob is the original usurper of the birthright blessing, but he then was given the new name because now his seed, loins, children, are going to bring about the promised Messiah in the learning of the Jews. Moses. Ta-da! It's that simple. This is apocalyptic literature, but they're using it in the story context about a man who's going to be named Moses. And that's not his name, but it's a clue that it's the David-Moses dynasty as the backdrop. But the author doesn't want to distract, I guess, and so does not name the Pharaoh, because Moses is already the name of the Pharaoh, at least the latter half, born of David, which is Thoth, the god Thoth, the symbol of the moon, and thus the first Pharaoh of the 18th dynasty was another name of the moon, Yah, literally Yah. Not the Semitic Yah, that is actually Zeus from the Greeks. The Hebrew god Yah is actually Zeus. Phonetically the same, or not phonetically, pictorially and thus phonetically, but again, Babylon screwed everything up. And so Yah, Prince of God for Israel. The promise is Moses. And it's apocalyptic literature because there's a future man like Moses to restore the kingdom of David. And so Moses is David, but it's just a different name, different story, so it's a different hero, but the same concept. And so the king is threatened by the numerous family of Joseph, and is concerned about an uprising and a conquering of his family dynasty. See? And that's the whole setup for the week's lessons to come, is when Moses confronts Pharaoh, he's saying, hey, you're not the legitimate dynasty. Step down. My dynasty is supposed to reign. And that's about the great and abominable church usurping the birthright and blessing from the founder, Joseph Smith, and Joseph Smith's prophesied man like Moses Mormon is to restore Joseph's church. It's that simple. If you go into the weird mystical, modern mystical, witchcraft, prophecy stuff, you're going to be confused and you're going to commit horrible crimes like a holy war. And so originally he wants to get them out of the land, kick them out. And it's interesting because when Moses comes in, Pharaoh says, nope, we're not going to get them up out of the land. We're going to make them slaves. And so that's the first thing he does here, is in order to chase them out, he makes them slaves. And in case you aren't aware, that's exactly what's going on right now. Utah is purposely causing lots of problems financially for people to chase as many as they can out of the land of Utah, so they can replace, and not with Jews, with Russians. And so they did name two of the cities, which were known in the Roman period still, Pithom and Ramses. And don't fall for the trick of saying, oh, it's the 19th dynasty. Oh, no. Again, this is not literal history. All those scholars with PhDs and published books are wrong. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied. We beat these rabbits and they keep multiplying. They're so cute. But very dangerous and deadly, according to the Holy Grail. And so as much as the Ten Commandments, the Prince of Egypt, and Exodus, Gods and Kings are fun and enjoyable to watch, don't use them for your knowledge of Scripture. That's one of the problems of Hollywood, is when they do movies about Bible stories, they indoctrinate the people away from the truth of the Scriptures. So just consider it entertainment, and make sure you have a knowledge of what is actually going on, so that you understand that when Hercules goes from hero to zero and goes into the underworld to rescue the betraying whore, he's rescuing Zion. It's Jesus going into hell to rescue Zion. And so it brings me to tears, as my mother and sister did not understand and did not make that connection, nor did any of the women in the older singles ward. I didn't realize that. Yes, the Greeks are a religion too. They migrated out of Egypt and eventually settled into Greece, and then eventually created their version of the Egyptian religion, renamed everything with a new language, and altered and added to and took away from the stories of the Egyptians. And so yes, all of the ancient classical literature are Scripture. They are apocalyptic literature, derived from the Egyptian sources. Even Lion King. You know, people will tell you, oh, well, there's an African folk tale about, is it Simbo instead of Simba? And it's a lion, and Disney plagiarized it. And no, the story of the original African story came from the Egyptians of Horus and Set. And Set is Scar, and Osiris is the father, Mufasa. And Simba is Horus. Exactly in that story. As Simba has to flee into the wilderness, they just alter it a bit because his mother goes with him. Can't have mother going with you when you're with the boys. Mom! So, yeah, the story was altered. Anyway. And so the king of Egypt spake to the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of the one was Shiphrah. And we should check, because Pharaoh has a distinct spelling. So let's check Exodus 1:15. And go to Blue Letter Bible, because they have the multiple translations. And Pua is the other one. That's interesting. Okay, no. Pua, yes. Shiphrah, no. Pharaoh has Ra in it. The Egyptian god, Amun. In its other form, Ra. It's the netter symbol of Paleo-Hebrew R, not head, monkey head, dear God, and the universal symbol of the sun, with the P symbol at the beginning of it. And so the Hebrew, Semitic Hebrew, it's Resh and Ayin. It's actually original Omega with the R for Rho in Greek. Rho and Omega, the original Omega. The symbol of the sun with the dot in the middle. Omega during Koine Greek period turned into the horizon sun. The two lines are the horizon, and it rises up on the horizon. There's supposed to be mountains that it rises between, but that's linear. I'm the one who deciphered it, in case you didn't know. And so he said, when ye do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, see them upon the stools. If they be a son, you shall kill him. If it be a daughter, let him live. Now there's some missing information here. Why is he killing the male babies? Just like Herod, who died in 7 BCE, is wanting to come from the grave during 1, right? Because Mormons believe Jesus was born in 1 CE, to 7 years later, to murder Jesus as a baby. No. This is all part of apocalyptic literature. And so it's not a coincidence when a certain asterisk president was murdering babies at the southern border. Not a coincidence. I was doing those videos and website posts before the church shut me down. And of course that asterisk president wasn't too happy either that I exposed him for the oranges of the investigation. And so yeah, this is part of the prophecy that he can't have their birthright blessing son take over the throne of his dynasty. The Hebrew dynasty has to die. That's what's going on here. It's not a literal history about killing babies. We've got to keep our throne. We cannot let another family group take over the throne. The great and abominable church must reign supreme throughout the millennium. We must find this. John talks about him being devoured. We're still waiting for that. Dear God, how far off were they on the math? We're supposed to get the new star. I did a whole big pre-show series of videos for you, and astronomers betrayed us. So, I guess the Book of Mormon isn't true. It's literal history. I guess we have to accept the great and abominable church as the one true church of Jesus. Alright, so the midwives, didn't want to obey. They're not going to kill their own. And so they had the babies escape. And here's an important Egyptianism. Every son that is born ye shall cast into the river. It's for the purpose of murdering them. And that's what happened to Osiris. His brother Set murdered his brother to take over the throne of the great and abominable church. Scar takes over the Pride Lands, makes it desolate, and enslaves everybody and puts them into bondage, murders them, and etc. And lays waste the land. And so every son you shall cast into the river is that reminder to us of Osiris, who was murdered by his brother, and then Horus needs to come back and restore the throne from his murdered father. But yeah, they're into sex slavery. Keep the daughters alive. So that's story one, setting it up for us. The preface of the book of Exodus. And I hope I pressed the button for the laundry. I'm going to go check and then come back for number 2. Alright, we're good. I just have to check because I don't trust myself. I try to establish patterns of action so that when I don't follow the pattern, it feels weird. And I go, what did I mean? Oh, that's right, I'm supposed to do this. Because before I learned that I'm not going to get Alzheimer's like my grandmother on my dad's side, I was told that if you do those kinds of repetitive daily routine patterns, it would help your mind as you get older and start to develop dementia or any other kind of mental degradation of the brain. So it'll prolong the onset. But even my DNA confirmed, yeah, I'm not at risk for Alzheimer's. My dad's sisters, however, were not as lucky. And I'm not sure about my dad. There were times where his betrayal of me seemed to suggest he wasn't thinking as he normally would. But that's been going on throughout his life. Nonetheless, chapter 2. 3. 2? Yeah, 2. Okay. And there went out a man of the house of Levi, the great and abominable church, the one who lost the birthright blessing for that incident among Prince Shechem and his soon-to-be people once Hamar, was that the father's name? Passes the throne to him, and there was a bloody massacre that occurred concerning the birthright blessing status of the throne. The circumcision is all about that. It's like an obelisk, and yes, the sexist women who complain that it's a phallic symbol, yeah, you're right. That doesn't make it bad. FOX. 4 letters. The Pillar of Jacob. And so, yeah, he marries in the family the wife of, took to wife a daughter of Levi. The house of Levi, daughter of Levi. This is the Egyptian story of pharaonic descent. The son has to marry his sister in order to secure the bloodline, the Holy Grail, of proper, true succession. And so, like I said for the chapter 1 there, is that the Pharaoh is concerned about this other family lineage usurping his family dynasty. Dynasty. I saw the episode on Simon and Simon where they had the one woman from Dynasty, and they said the name Dynasty to plug Dynasty. Hilarious. And so, and the woman conceived and bare a son. And when she saw him, that he was a goodly child, of goodly parents, she hid him 3 months. There's the wilderness thing. Took him into the wilderness to hide him from King Set, Satan, the adversary in Paleo-Hebrew. And because that's what the Egyptian story is all about. That's what we're seeing here, is the woman fleeing into the wilderness. And when she could no longer hide him, she took the ark of bulrushes, dabbed it with slime and pitch, and put the child therein, laid it in the flags by the river's brink, and put him in the Nile. This is from Egyptian. Don't listen to these PhD scholars who say that this is old Assyrian King Sargon I. He stole it from the Egyptians. That's why he was using it for his royal ascension to the throne. The Egyptian story is that Osiris was placed in a coffin, having been murdered by his brother, sent up the Nile River, landed at Babel in Beirut, Lebanon, for the cedars of Lebanon. And there, as it was beached, a tree, a cedar of Lebanon, grew in its place. And then you go to Ezekiel's parable in chapter 17, Son of Man, about a twig from the lofty branches carried by an eagle to America. Homepage, that playlist about the man like Moses. That's where this is talking about. This is the man like Moses. They're using the Egyptian stories and they're altering it, removing a lot of information from it. But here, instead of the father being murdered and sent up the river, they're saying that Pharaoh wants to murder the babies, to keep the babies, and that's the second death of Osiris, in which missionaries go out, retrieve the coffin, and return the body back to the sun city, Heliopolis, Zion, and Isis, through her magic witchcraft, brings them back to life. Women can have priesthood too, 17 March 1842. Look it up. Just like 19 July 1840. Look it up. Don't think that you're going to be innocent by not reading it so that you can be ignorant and saved in your ignorance. Look it up. It's there for you. You will see that the church is a fraud. And so the second one is Set makes sure he's dead by chopping his body into 14 pieces, the house of Israel, and then sends them afloat on the river. So the missionaries of ISIS have to go out around the world to gather in the elect from the four quarters of the earth in the latter days to Zion, not the Great and Abundant Church. But you can see what they're doing here, as they're saying the Great and Abominable Church will try to also gather in as well to increase their numbers to overthrow the governments of the world, rather than to establish peace and happiness. And so from those branches is the child. And so he's sort of merging and leaving out information about the full story that is the plain and precious parts that were removed from the Bible. And I just showed you how to put them back in. Ezekiel chapter 37, as well as the Book of Mormon. And so the wife of Pharaoh, Bayet, his house of Pharaoh, daughters do not get permission to raise babies on their own. But again, now you understand immaculate conception, don't you? We are getting a star date through story form of the start of the latter days. Here we go. Right here in Exodus chapter 2, verse 5, 23rd September 2017. Ta-da! And I've gone over the videos on what happened that day. And we're going to lose her on this April conference. She's worked so hard. Exmo Licks did an excellent video the other day talking about how the prophets really feel about women. She's already got 10,000 views, so you guys have already seen it. Why I can't get others to watch my channel is only because the church doesn't want them to watch it. And John DeLynn too. John DeLynn's pissed at me because I exposed him as a groomer of Mormons leaving the church. You guys don't see it. You saw the church doing it to you, and then you don't see John DeLynn doing it to you? I mean, you can tell by the thumbnail. They had his employee leaning. All of you Sandra Bullock fans know what I'm talking about. You're not supposed to lean. You have a wife. I think she even has a husband. What the hell are you two doing? Trying to become like Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow. Alright, so yeah, Miriam is referred to as the sister here. I'm not seeing in the immediate future about the name Miriam yet. So yeah, they just say the sister stood afar off, and it's Miriam, which means bitterness in Hebrew. Yeah, my sister was sure bitter. The oldest of the three younger sisters, Tiffany. Okay, so daughter of Pharaoh, that's the queen. But again, they're giving us a star date, and that's why they're using daughter for the Immaculate Conception. And so her maidens walked along by the riverside. Yeah, virgins. Say virgins. Daughter, other virgins. Virgo. 23rd September 2017. And so you're seeing the River Nile that is also understood as space. And so virgin in space, giving birth immaculately. Boom. That's how he tells the story of it. That's how the prophecy goes. And so she conceives Horus and sees that he's not one of their kind. They're Egyptian. They're all Egyptian. Yeah. He's not of the great and abominable church. He's the one true church of Joseph Smith. Kill him! Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, "Oh, Miriam's there, huh? Shall I go and call to thee a nurse of the Hebrew women?" Yeah. And so, yeah, Moses gets nursed by his actual mother, but this is Joseph Smith translation, Revelation chapter 12, verse 1. Signs in the heavens in the likeness of things on the earth. There is a man like Moses for the latter days. He is mortal, son of man, and has mortal parents. And so even though the latter day sign in the heavens is one thing, the actual birth is another, and he has an actual mother. And I've gone over it with you. It's Esau's wife's name, Judith. Judah. The betrayers of the Mormon man like Moses. And called his name Moses, because she drew him out of the water. No, no, no. It just means is born. Don't put anything else in the definition, you Roman period author. F-O-X. Four-letter word. Yep. And so Moses is grown. He's ready to go back to Egypt and say, "Let my people go," right? Wrong. We missed the part in the book of Jasher where he's on Pharaoh's lap and takes off the crown of Pharaoh's head, puts it on his head. Pharaoh wants to murder him. This little brat. And so the priests say, "Oh, he's just a baby. He's just a kid, just a youngin. He doesn't know." how about we do a contest to see what happens, and if he chooses the jewel, then we'll slay him. If he chooses the hot burning coal, we'll let him live. And so, yes, while on an Eagle Scout campout, his father is cooking stroganoff on a sterno, and one of the coals escapes, and the little young Moses picks it up with his left hand, blistering his thumb, and then tastes of the stroganoff, which burns his tongue. And so I guess we can let him live. Well, yep. And so here he's at an age where he's now competition with the birthright blessing son, as we've all seen at least one of the three movies. Some of us have seen all of them. He's now a prince of Egypt. He's an heir to the throne. And that's what they're saying here, is that even though he's not of the Danites, he's born and raised in the great and abominable church to be the man like Joseph Smith and restore Joseph Smith's church. But the great and abominable church wants to murder him. When Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses. And Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian, where Ishmael, right? Or is it Esau? It was Esau, Edom. Yeah, Midian is Edom, where Esau is. And he gets the true priesthood from Esau, who lost the birthright blessing. Thus cursed is the manner of priesthood. and the name is actually the god Ra. Amen of the Egyptians. Hilarious when you understand the Hebrew. And so, yeah, you see shepherds. You're not supposed to murder the the flock. You're supposed to feed the flock. You're supposed to pull them out of Ukraine and Russia and out of Europe and send them home from their missions. It's time to send them home. Nope. He wants to plan another mass exodus on conference weekend. 50,000 Mormons. A duel to the death. Survival of the fittest. The strongest Mormons survive. I warn you, don't go. Rise up against the church. And you won't listen, because YouTube won't let you listen. You know, ordained women get a strong presence. Even that groomer gets a strong backing. And the bishop who got excommunicated, wanting to protect children from inappropriate questions, F-O-X, 4 letters. He got a massive following to stop the church. And when Nelson tried I've had my influence. When I sued the church, when I confronted Pharaoh, let my Mormons go. And Mormon said, screw you, Travis. Who are you that we should follow you? We will follow Nelson to our death. He's the one true false Christ. And so, yeah. And So Ruel, the god Ra, gave Zipporah, the feisty little on the Prince of Egypt version, the cartoon, to Moses, and she bare him a son and named him Gershom. And I have been a stranger in a strange land. No. So the king of Egypt dies. Monson. Yep. Wow. Yep. 23rd September 2017, the Immaculate Conception, starting in the latter days, and then 2nd January 2018 at 10:01 p.m. during Revelation 12, verse 4, stars falling from the tail of the dragon. Or is it 3 and then merged with Joseph Smith translation to 4? It's the tails falling from the tail, stars falling from the tail of the dragon. That's when Monson died. And thus a lunar eclipse also. I've done that for you. Official declaration number 1, verse 11. God is pissed, and sure enough, he gave you the sign of Horus's left eye for the moon, which is religion. So the eclipse of the moons are to signal to Mormons that he disapproves of that president of the church. And so yeah, this follows the sign of the birth, the death of the original king. Fascinating. And so the replacement is So I can keep going back over these over and over again and find more stuff. It's amazing how the scriptures are awesome and so true as apocalyptic literature. So you just got exclusive stuff. 1 hour and 30 minutes in. Is that where we're at? Alright, so here we have the burning bush. And it's not literal. It did not happen this way, because the other author of the book of Numbers tells us that this is a dream. This is how it was done. And so in a dream, the Son of Man, the man like Moses, is to have a dream to be given authority. And Moses kept the flock of Jethro. Oh, he's now Jethro, huh? A different god. The priest of Midian. Through Esau. The false Christ. And came to the mountain of God. Mountain in Hebrew is Har, which transliterated into Egyptian is Horus. And so mountain and Horus are one and the same. God, this I told you is the German version of the name you're looking for. The actual one is Sun God rather than Mountain God, or God's Hill. So don't be confused by this. He's the one that gave us St. Patrick, the myth of St. Patrick, and the one-eyed serpent. Oh, that's a different movie, not Sandra Bullock. It's the perfume woman, the pretty woman, the prostitute saved by Richard Gere. Can't think of her name. I always can't figure out her name until I see it and I go, oh. So I just look Pelican Brief and I'd be able to figure it out. Or I can do Pretty Woman, since I know Pretty Woman. Julia Roberts, there it is. I've already tamed the one-eyed serpent, Grandma. F-O-X. And so the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a flame of fire in the midst of the bush. Malachi. So you notice any comparisons with the Book of Mormon stories, especially in 1 Nephi chapter 1, or Joseph Smith stories in the Joseph Smith history? See anything similar? Yeah. All dreams. Not a coincidence. And so, yeah, I don't get burned in my dreams either. I can fly. I can fly like a... I can't remember the lyrics. Okay, and so here am I. This, I think, is the same author as Genesis. End of Samuel. Here am I. Oh, hilarious. And so yeah, put the shoes from off your feet. And don't fall for the rabbit holes of Mormons. Oh, the temple. Oh yeah, the top of the mountains is Utah. But yeah. That's part of the prophecy. Is that when he gets this dream, he will be at the top of the mountain. Utah, the betrayer Judah. Phonetically the same. And so I am the God of thy father Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. So it's a different genealogy now. And so he's afraid to look at the face of God, face to face. And the Amorites, the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, and the Hittites give you the land flowing with milk and honey. Not quite the Hittite land, but to the river of Euphrates during David Moses IV with Armageddon and little vacation trip during the middle of the war to go to Jerusalem. What's up with that? But yeah, you see the Hittites involved here. This is Esau country, Canaan. The one who was cursed because his dad saw his dad naked. What's up with that? Dad, why am I getting cursed? What did I do? Well, Abraham chapter 1 tells us, oh, you weren't supposed to have sex with your sister, Egyptus. Oops! Well, you were, because that's how the bloodline gets transferred. And so, yes, the Pharaoh's son, a good guy, wants to imitate the true order, and just wasn't supposed to have authority. That's a different apocalyptic literature that Joseph Smith is writing. Different story. And so, yeah, he's being told, yeah, you need to free the Mormons out of bondage from the Great and Abominable Church, led by the successor to Monson. What's his name again? Interesting. He is a medical doctor, like the serpent staff, but it's the false serpent staff that we get into with the confrontation over who has authority and who doesn't. The battle of Elijah, the god Yah, and the priests of Baal. So yeah, who am I? I can't defeat the great and abominable church with a stone like David would do. The Mormons aren't going to believe me. We'll tell them I am that I am. Mistranslation, big time. Again, you have to understand the different characters for Paleo-Hebrew script. We can go over it, I guess. Why not? So, Exodus 3:14. Then let's see, we got to take a break here. I switch to laundry. Yeah. It's composed of AHYH, and so you have a weird construction here, because Paleo Hebrew only has 2-letter words, and then there's mostly a prefix determinative, sometimes a suffix determinative. But what you have here is the flail symbols for the H's. Pharaoh has the crook and the flail on his coffin crossed over. The flail is what you swat in the air to swat flies away. It's also used to swat the behind of the oxen as you're driving it forward. If you see that in facsimile number 2, it's upside down because it's a circle. But nonetheless, yeah, Abraham driving the ox, or the sun across the sky. Yeah, that's what it's referring to. And so you have air and air. So remember the creation? The upper waters were divided from the lower waters, and the dry land appeared. From the Egyptian stories, you have Shu, who is the father of Nut and Geb, who separates them by holding up their arms. That comes also in the Moses story about the battle to take back the promised land. And so in the middle, you're looking at Aramaic script, not Paleo-Hebrew script. It's the Zeta in Paleo-Hebrew. And thus, Za is Yah, or Zeus, with the masculine singular ending for Greek. And so it's the Z with the little line through it. And what that is the top line is for heaven, bottom line is for earth, and the middle thing is the holding up, just like from Genesis chapter 1. The separation of heaven and earth, the upper waters from the lower waters. And it's in between the two H's, or flail symbols of air. And so that's the god of the air. And it's confirmed as to the identity with the A. Alpha, which is the Eye of Horus. Unless you watch Stargate, and then they say Eru Netur. You gotta get the right phonetics. God of the Eye is what the high priest is saying in regards to Daniel Jackson's necklace that he got from Catherine. From Star Trek Origins, or Stargate Origins. Star Trek Origins. Stargate Origins. And so that's the Eye of Horus is the prefix determinative, and you have the two air symbols with creation glyph in between them. So the god of heaven and Osiris. Ta-da! The father of Horus. Father, the blood. Oh, that's mother, the blood. I'll be back. Alrighty, we should probably check to see how far we're supposed to go before we proceed further. Six. Okay. And we're finishing up 3. Alrighty. I am sure that the king of Egypt will not let you go. No, not by a mighty hand. Yeah. That's what we're waiting for, is the fall of the great and abominable church. Otherwise, they will murder and conquer. And we will not get to the promised land. Notice, the promised land is in Egypt, and they leave the promised land to the desert wasteland, and then have to exodus back to the promised land. Where was Joseph Smith? Yeah, just north of southern Illinois. 19 July 1840. There's a reason. It's because of the 2 eyes of Horus that get blinded and cross in southern Illinois. Samson, the murder of the lion, that's 21st of August 2017. His death at the Temple Broussard building. You've got Greek analogies of pillars. And Bruce refuses to put the church temple, the great and abominable church. I know no better now than you know then. F-O-X. Four-letter word. And so yes, that's what Joseph Smith knew, is that Mormons would be usurped by the murderers of Joseph Smith, 19 July 1840, the 12, under Brigham Young. And that he would take them west into the desert, and that in the future, a man like Moses would free the Mormons from the great and abominable church. And they would readily accept him and not want to murder him, not ignore him and cancel culture him. They would willingly follow, just like the house of Israel. And we'd go back to southern Illinois, not Missouri. I had to learn that one from 19 July 1840. Oh, we're not going back there. Oh, okay. Southern Illinois, huh? Huh. Well, that's coincidental. There are 2 solar eclipses that cross there. And oh, look, Knights Templar is involved there. Oh, look, the native inhabitants before the Knights Templar arrived also were involved there. Huh, that's coincidental. Sure, it has nothing to do with anything, right? Yeah. So he says, gather the elders of Israel. Ye elders of Israel, come join now with me. No. We don't want to. We're Danites. Die, Travis, die! Oh, no. It means the Travis the. From German. From the Simpsons episode, Die, Bart, die! Kelsey Grammer plays Sideshow Bob. Why weren't they making DVDs after season 20? You get more money, guys. Do you not want more money? Make the DVDs. And now Disney took over, and Disney doesn't want to make DVDs. They'd rather extort people. As we support China in their torture of that group where Mulan was filmed. So the only way to watch our movies is to watch our channel. Don't you want to watch our movies? You'll only be able to watch them on our channel. No DVDs. We support China, who tortures human beings. And then they're also in trouble for the don't say gay. Oh, he's doing a tour to learn how people feel. We already know you by your fruits. Dear God. Alright. And so, yeah, the snake by the tail. Tail of the dragon. And the fall. You know, these are the signs that I am giving to Moses. And so, yeah, leprous as snow, he'll be a white man. Yeah, Ezekiel, the Jews knew this, that he would be from Ephraim, and thus the Europeans. The serpent on a stick, that represents the scepter of authority. It's not a bad thing to have a snake. There's a lot of Egyptian symbolism behind the snake. Just understand that it has to do with seer, generally speaking, rather than going into talking about how they would have themselves bitten by a serpent and then given a cure that would result in hallucinations for a period of the healing time. And thus they would write down their visions and from that experience. You don't need to do that. Trust me. You just learn to follow the right spirit from your ideas, your inspiration. Judge them by the fruits. If it turns out to be bad fruit, don't listen to that voice anymore. It's not complicated. If you get an idea and it sucks big time, FOX, just don't listen to that voice anymore. But once you found the right voice, you'll get more and more and more from that source. Just keep on going. And you'll be overwhelmed, and you'll have 3 binders full of video ideas that'll never get made. And so the rod of of Oliver Cowdery, Rod of Aaron, changed to the gift of God in our Doctrine and Covenants. Yeah, because they were new Israelites, or their daddies were actually, in New York. And yeah, I found William Cowdery Jr. Saw what he was involved with the church. Because it was like, well, he knew, and Oliver Cowdery was involved, so why wasn't William? Where's William involved here? Ah, there he is. Gotcha. And so here's the triumphal entry into Egypt, or Jerusalem, whether it's Moses or Jesus. Moses took his wife and sons and set them on an ass, and he returned to the land of Egypt. Passover week, Passion week, the coronation of the true king week, whichever story you're using it from, and had the iron rod, the Book of Mormon in his hand, Tree of Life. There's a reason why there's the Tree of Life in there. The new Israelites, Jewish mysticism. And show Pharaoh in your lawsuit that you're the true. Oh man, see, I just submitted the inverted pentagram on the keystone, and the lawyers had to counsel with their clients, as I'm expecting the salesman's boss's lawyer to do, and fire his ass. FOX, so that I can be restored, unless, there's a fall coming very soon. Otherwise, if this is going to keep dragging out like Putin wants it to, I need somehow to survive. And so Moses is a bloody man, a bloody husband, because he wouldn't circumcise his firstborn birthright blessing son. Provide him with an obelisk with the crown on the top, which is the delta symbol for pyramids and breasts, and David, the double D's of David, which means love, and FOX, four-letter word. I'm using the different word in case you didn't know on other times I explained the FOX. It's code for different words. So yeah, Zipporah was the one who circumcised Gershom. Yeah, and there's the inn. No room in the inn. So he let him go. Then she said, "A bloody husband art thou because of the circumcision." Damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. My goodness. So I'm thinking, so he let him go. Then she said, I have to look at their actual text in Hebrew to see what the actual translation is. They don't have the JPS translation for us in Blue Letter Bible. But it seems, well, he does reunite with his wife on 8 April 2024. So, not quite sure what happened there to her. But yeah, a man like Moses is supposed to be divorced twice. He got involved with that Egyptian woman from Canada. And then the one who cut his hair, Delilah, and then betrayed him to the Mormons. They got married in room number 13 of the Great and Abominable Church's temple, and had their wedding feast at the Lion House next to the Beehive House. Samson, Sun King. Chapter 5. Afterward Moses and Aaron went in, told Moses, "Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, let my people go." Way down, Moses, way down, Egypt land. Martin Luther King Jr. did not fully grasp what he was telling people when he said, "I have been to the top of the mountain." Because Christians don't believe Moses is the Christ. That's the learning of the Jews. And yet there he was saying he was the Christ, and he was murdered. Very tragic. Alright. And so yeah, Pharaoh said, "Who is the Lord that I should obey his voice to let Israel go? I have studied the gathering of Israel. I've learned all there is to know." And then I asked Hebrew scholars, and they said it means let God prevail. So who is the Lord that I should obey him? Who is Amen? Jesus. Let him go. Somebody's out there with a car with a male speaking voice. It better not be the salesman, because that means that his bosses are refusing to do what they need to do and are willing to sacrifice their business. I'm going to find out. Nope, all clear, all good. Somebody else. So far, maybe they are not in on it, even though they're in on it. I gave them an opportunity here. I got them both by the balls. Balls to the wall, man. Accept. And then they do the... No, that's... Is that accept? Are they the ones that also do the Kool-Aid? Balls to the... Yeah, it is. Cool. Accept. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Both songs appropriate for this video. Balls to the wall and don't drink the Kool-Aid. I'm begging you, don't drink the Kool-Aid, guys. Stand up against the church. Demand that they shut down. Don't just tell them to change. They're not going to change. They need to be shut down for their evil. You know, it's great that Exmolex, you know, exposes those prophets and oaks about how they really think of women. that's just a side effect of the real evil that is within their souls. That is the danger I'm trying to warn you about. Because if you're still in the Mormon church and you believe they're good and true of Jesus, rather than the learning of the Jews' Christ, Amen, that Joseph Smith was trying to give us, you are in for a very rude shock when the church falls, right? The church is going to fall soon, very soon. Please go through the stages of denial to show how desperate I am. I've been self-fulfilling the prophecy of the stages of denial. Do you know that's how psychologists groom you? They create the symptoms and then tell you you're exhibiting the symptoms, and once you accept that you're doing the symptoms, ta-da! You've self-fulfilled their own prophecy. That's grooming. That's why psychologists are evil. So yeah, bargaining, if you didn't know the stages of denial. I'm supposed to be angry. I'm not supposed to mock and make fun. And so yeah, after the lawsuits, the president of the Great and Abominable Church gets worse to the Mormons and starts slaughtering them. Beats them. Makes their work harder. No food from the bishop's storehouse for them. Unless they work. Letting them suffer in their foreign country that's under war. Let my people go. And so yeah, Moses is blaming the Lord. Wherefore hast thou so evil entreated this people? Why is it that thou hast sent me? Because yeah, Pharaoh is unconquerable. Moses is just a single man. Nobody wants to follow him. Nobody wants to stand by him or even behind him. And so, yeah, the Lord identifies himself as Jehovah. That's not I am. That's a different spelling. That's a different spelling. Instead of the Yod, it's the Vav, the Y shape in Paleo-Hebrew, which is the post. So you take off the top bar and the lower bar and the Yod, which is Zeta, to get the remaining portion. And so that seems like it's similar. It's the two H's still, but you have a different prefix determinative. And so it's more set as to the middle character, what that is, and then you have Yah, which is the Z at the beginning rather than at the middle portion there. So it's a similar word. This is the new name given to Yah, who is the son of Father Yah, in Joseph Smith's correctly translated from the King Follett Discourse Hebrew text. In case there are any of you out there who are wondering, how is the rest of the Bible supposed to be translated? Because that sure does a Messer splits with it. As Rabbi Sykes told Joseph, you are correct, but you would destroy the Bible. Yeah, because the translation's wrong. Deuteronomy told you, don't mess with the Torah. And you messed with the Torah. What did you think was going to happen? Leave it in Paleo-Hebrew, despite the Samaritans. And don't add vowel points and extra vowel letters. Leave it as it was originally. How hard was that? Apparently too hard. Because those Greeks made the Septuagint version. Which also screwed things up. And then there was the Latin Vulgate that was also before the Masoretic text. So yes, Elohim became an influence of Constantine and thus was made an anachronism in the text. So Elohim is not Heavenly Father. Jehovah is not Jesus. Don't get fooled. So yeah, it's the creator from the creation story. You know, it's Shu, Father, Heavenly Father, the father of Adam and Eve, not Geb, who separated them. So Brigham Young is wrong. Joseph Smith did not say that Adam is our Heavenly Father. And so yeah, you're going to get the land. And I will take you to me for a people, and I will be your God. So yeah, it's the Thioth that's being reminded of here. And the man like Moses is supposed to restore the restore the original church from the great and abominable church. He's the seed of Messiah from Jacob the usurper, who became Israel. Yah, Prince of God. Moses spake to the children of Israel, and they cancel cultured him and sent him death threats and put thumbs down. They hearkened not unto Moses. How did I know? Mormons are fulfilling biblical prophecy, and they're going to be taught it in Sunday school, and they're not going to understand. Only those who have made it this far in the video will go, oh, okay. You will have so much more of the advantage than those in Sunday school. And I dare you to raise your hand because you're not going to Sunday school, right? Don't be fooled into thinking it's gone. It's coming back. Just Pharaoh's trying to murder you. Mormons just refuse to live. I want to die. And so yeah, the sons of Reuben are listed, the sons of Simeon are listed. Oh, they still have kings through their generations, and nobody checks these to see who becomes the kings that are found in the archaeological record. And the names of the sons of Levi: Gershon. That was the son of Moses. What? What are you doing? House of Levi. They never did tell us the name of the father of Moses. Sons of Gershon, Libni, Shimei. And then they don't do Libni. So we don't see how far down Moses is. Sons of Kohath, Uzziel, and we see him appear. Or did the birthright blessing son get usurped? Amram. Yeah. We have another birthright blessing usurpation. Moses comes from Levi, then Kohath, and then Amram. So Kohath usurps the birthright blessing from Gershon. Ta-da! But they're not acknowledging that here. But that is the pattern, as our trash man is here today. It looks like it's getting hot enough to close the window and pull out the fan. Alright, Eleazar, Elkanah. Do I need to repeat that for you? Elkanah. Where does Elkanah appear, Mormons? The sons of Korah. And where are they? Where are they? Egypt? Huh. That's what Joseph Smith says of Elkanah. He's the priest of Elkanah, or the god of Elkanah. And thus Elkanah is right there in Exodus chapter 6, Mormons, especially apologists who lead you down the path of deception. Oh, it's got El, so it's God, and then Canaan. So yeah, Korah comes from Izhar, and then Izhar is from Kohath. Interesting. So Moses comes from Amram, and Elkanah comes from Izhar. I told you the Abraham papyra is about the 18th dynasty. Did I not tell you? I did tell you. There it is. Ta-da! Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. These are they which spoke to Pharaoh. Ta-da! Egypt. In case you didn't know, Abraham, facsimile number 1, verse, or figure 10, Abraham in Egypt. And there it is. There's Elkanah, relative of Moses. And so, yeah, you've got Levi. Let's see. So, interesting. Well, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the same Elkanah. It's like John or Joseph here in America. There's a billion of them. Yeah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, but through Levi instead of Joseph. And so then you have Kohath, number 5. Probably do it this way better. So 5, Kohath, and then sons of Kohath, Izhar, and then Izhar, sons of Izhar, Korah, and then Korah, Elkanah. So 8 generations to get to Elkanah from Abraham. And so, yeah, there would have been a different Elkanah for Abraham, but in Egypt. Ta-da! Bum bum ba dum ba dum ba ba dum ba ba dum bum ba ba dum bum. And so here they're talking about uncircumcised lips. To circumcise is to exalt to the throne, to be crowned as king. And so thus for lips, you don't actually cut off the lips. Please don't cut your lips. It has to do with the words that come out of your mouth. That you're speaking as one with authority, rather than one who doesn't have authority, like Pharaoh. And Moses is saying, well, I'm not Pharaoh, I'm uncircumcised of lips. And so, how will Pharaoh hearken? Because he's the one in the position of authority. Alrighty. So next week is the actual one, and oh god, that's conference weekend. Timed perfectly. Yep, please. I'm begging you, please don't go to conference. They're purposely setting this up for a survival of the fittest Mormon. It is an extermination event, a genocidal assault. Please, dear God, in heaven of all that's holy and mighty of the fox, please. Conference weekend, dear God. The actual Exodus of the Exodus. Creeping death. Esther. Purim. We just had Purim. I'm still waiting to find out if the weapon used to destroy me will be the weapon that destroys the abuser, the salesman. Dear God. Alright, so now we find out if the Mormon employee is working his shift and is still wanting to commit crimes for the church. So here we go.